program happen, but I also just want to give another special shout out and thank you to the New Mexico Humanities Council and the National Endowment for the Humanities. We're in a difficult time right now, and without those granting institutions, these kinds of programs just really are almost impossible for us to do on a very regular basis, and it was because of the generosity of the New Mexico Humanities Council, the supportive staff that are there, that we're able to talk in front of you today. So thank you again very much for lending us your support. So I hope you all have had a chance to go and look at the exhibition. If you haven't, we're still showing it for another week. So maybe after this talk, if you haven't gotten a chance to go out there, you will be inspired. But I just want to ask some questions of us and have a conversation. And of course, I have questions written down. Doesn't mean we have to follow them, but I'm going to ask a couple of questions of you individually, but you're all welcome to chime in as you feel necessary. So I do want to start with Claudio Perez, right? Teacher at Sandia Prep. You've been there for over a decade doing this project. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started the Border Doors project? What led you to create this project? And for those of us that are not as familiar of your long, extensive journey developing this and working with students and working with Pastora Sanchez Guzman.
I started the project, thank you, Alicia. I started the project 10 years ago. And the whole purpose of the project was to give math Spanish courses a more of a critical dimension. I felt that just teaching grammar and vocabulary was kind of boring. I could kind of see my students getting bored. So I wanted to bring something different to the table. And I've always been a dreamer. You know, I've always liked art, but I didn't know how to implement art with my classes. So I decided that I wanted to do something different. I wanted to create a shift in my class. And I decided to incorporate these doors, which are really emblematic of what the border is about, you know. So that's why I started using the doors to create this art project. And then I got in touch with the pastor, and then I started taking trips to the border. And I just felt that these doors had slowly, I was creating a bigger dimension when it came to immigration issues. And also, this is really personal to me as well. You know, I'm an immigrant. My parents are immigrants. So this is really, really, really personal to me. And since it's so personal, you know, I really have a really deep connection to this project. So, yeah, that's, you know, some of the reasons why I started this project.
So for those of us who are a little bit less familiar, I think I'm familiar with it, but maybe we have some folks in the audience. You teach students for all their years in Sandia Prep, right, Spanish class, and these are mostly seniors. You take them to the border. They meet with the pastora at the Christo Rey. You do some other service learning projects, right? And then they come back, right, you guys? You come back, and then what do you do when you come back to Albuquerque?
Well, we basically jump straight into the doors after that. It's been such an amazing experience because we learn all these things about immigration, but it's like we'll read these incredible novels, but there's a sort of separation when you're reading a novel about just an immigrant's journey versus you actually getting to hang out with families that are immigrating. And it kind of blurs the line between just like fantasy and reality. You realize that like these things you're learning about are real, these people are real, and they're just like you and I, like we're all the same. And it's just kind of beautiful to have this incredible experience and then come back and be able to apply it and reflect on it through just a creative measure like creating these doors. So it's really cool.
For me, when I got back, both my parents just kept asking me about, like everyone that knew I went on the trip kept asking me about what I did, and like immediately after. And so for me, I had to take some time to think about it because we're there for like 3 days, and it's a lot in those 3 days. Like it felt probably more like a week. But the like day we got, or like right after we got back, he asked us to start thinking about our doors, and so that's what we did.
So Pastora Sanchez Guzman, let me ask you a question because you have worked at the border for a very long time. Can you talk about the kind of programs that you do in the border immersion program at Christo Rey and the kind of more detailed stuff about your work?
Just a quick background, I am not Mexican, I'm from Bolivia. And so I came to work in a Mexican church in El Paso. And so in my past, missionaries used to go to Bolivia and stay in my house to do service. But I was always kind of upset that they didn't know anything about the people. They just took a picture with whatever they built and they were proud. And that always bothered me. And other things also in my past that I experienced led me to think that someday I wanted to be a pastor in the United States and do reverse mission. Thinking, okay, they think that they can only go to our countries and be missionaries, you know, but the gospel that they present sometimes is not what I think it is. So when I came to El Paso, I learn, I'm still learning from the Mexican culture and immigration, what happens there. Because I was raised in a very conservative church, so for me, coming without documents was against the law, you know, and you have to follow the law. So I was black and white. After 26 years of working on the border, I'm all gray. And I think my God is good with that. He's happy with that. And so, one of the ways that I do reverse mission is through the border immersion program, because people then get a chance to hear stories directly from the people. They get to hear from an immigration lawyer. They get to hear about poverty in the United States, because we have about 352 colonias in El Paso that are outside of the city, of people, you know, living without services sometimes in those colonias. And so people come and learn. They also learn from an immigration lawyer and other things, other organizations. And so my job is not to tell them what to believe, but my job is to present all those things to them. And then when they go back home, they have to decide what to do with that information. So there's two kinds of seeing, you know, they're seeing something literally like, you know, I'm seeing the floor, but also the other kind of seeing is that when you see truth, then you feel called to do something about that. And I always challenge the groups when they leave, you know, I want you to think and decide what you're going to do about this and how you're going to respond. This is not a camp, you know, that you go and have fun for 3 days or anything like that. This is more than that. And so that's the way I do reverse mission. And the immersion has been since 97, actually since 92, before my time, but it was more service. A lot of people like just to do service, but we decided to change it, so now it's more educational. When the kids come, they do go visit the shelters, they cook for the refugees, they spend time with the refugees and things like that, but it's more educational. So they hear stories, but they are also challenged to know what's behind all of that. And we have started receiving refugees since 2017 at Christo Rey. We still have one family that's living at the church. Challenging times because they got an email saying that they have 7 days to leave the country and things like that. So the work with the immigrant church, because many members have been deported in the past, so we have experienced that. But also working with the refugees, those two things have been the most profound, or it has had the most profound effect in my life. The most spiritual journey in my life also, because I have seen God through them. And so it has changed me so much. I'm so worried about what's going on right now.
Thank you. Dr. Perez, as an academic working in the field in immigration studies, can you tell us how the border has changed in the last few years, certainly in the last few months maybe? How have things evolved to the extent that we are where we are right now?
Well, you know, the border, I think it was the great Chicana poet Asaldúa when she said that the border is it's a permanent cut that is still bleeding. Just kind of paraphrasing, it doesn't really go that way, but unfortunately, immigrants throughout the history of this country have always been used as scapegoats when it comes to immigration policy. I mean, we can go all the way back to the 1800s with, you know, the Irish and the Italians and of course the Mexicans after the Mexican-American War, where Mexico lost half of its territory. And all those Americans, Euro-Americans that were coming into the Southwest illegally, which is kind of ironic to use that term, to populate these areas. But the border, it's kind of a double standard that the border between Canada and the United States doesn't get treated the same way versus the border between the United States and Mexico, where you have a lot of cultural connections, historically speaking, not only through the Mexican population, but also with the Native American population that has been separated by that human-made borderline. But things definitely are a little bit harsher today. Claudia and I grew up and we were farm workers. We worked with strawberry workers for a while, and they will tell us their stories about how easy back in the 70s and 80s was to cross the United States. But now, of course, we are seeing the travesty of what's happening in Central America with many people also from South America, from places like Venezuela, of course, coming into the United States and going through that travesty through emigrating all the way from the southern parts of the country of Mexico. So the border still has that unwanted sign, you know, that you're not welcome, that unwelcome sign. And there's a reason that this project is so important, all right? And I think Claudio will evaluate, talk a little bit more about it. That, you know, the door is like that metaphor that, you know, you're either welcome or you're not. And I think that's the reason that this project has so much power, because it kind of represents the border in so many ways. That, you know, the border is shut down for people who are coming south of the border, but when it's coming from other countries, there's all these other, historically this country with these nativist attitudes have always prioritized a certain type of immigrant. And we have seen it ever since this country was founded. But yeah, the borders, it's a powerful, but also a very unwelcoming place for a lot of people who just are exactly fleeing for the same reasons that, you know, the first Europeans came to this country. They were fleeing famine and religious persecution. It's exactly the same story, but because of these folks being brown folk, they're treated quite differently. But if they were coming from Europe, or they were coming from, you know, non-Hispanic countries, I think the story will be very different.
So one of the things that I know that you maybe did differently this last trip that you took in the fall, Claudio, with your students, and maybe you, and correct me if you've done this before, but can you tell us about the Hugs Not Walls program that you engaged in? And then I'd love to hear from the two of you about what that experience was like, and maybe if it changed your views in some way. So Claudio, can you tell us what the Hugs Not Walls is?
Yes, I've been wanting to go to this big event that takes place every year. And I know I've been talking to the pastor for several years, like, I would like to go, but for some reason I couldn't because the timing was off. But it so happened that this time when we were there, we got invited to go. So I was really happy to take my students there. So when we arrived there, there was some authority figures that wanted to cancel the event. And I know there was a lot of pushback from the organizers and some other people that were talking to them. They wanted to cancel that. It was a bit militarized in some ways.
So what is the event? Tell us what
the event is basically people from the states. They need to apply to go to the border, and people from Mexico, I believe maybe the pastor can correct me, they have to follow the same procedures. They have to apply so they can see their significant other. So the border opens up for 5-6 hours, and there's like a platform in the middle of the river, and people from Mexico wait, and people from the states, they have to wait, and they open the borders, and they can hug each other only for 3 to 4 minutes. And then after they do that, they have to go back to Mexico, and they have to go back to the States. It was a really powerful moment for me because I felt like I seen everything because I've been going to the border for so many years. But every time I go, I bring something back. I think get humanized more. And so the new border project, the new border doors are based on that trip. So and maybe the kids could tell you a little bit more about that. So Pastor, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
So the organization is called Border Network for Human Rights. One of my members, it's been a volunteer there for many, many years. And so it's a protest for the families that have been divided all for so many years. And so even sometimes the Border Patrol cries when they see the families that haven't seen each other for 10, 20 years or more, to see each other right there in the middle of the border and see for 3 minutes. It's heartbreaking when the people, especially if there are kids seeing their parents or their moms, the kids don't want to let go of their mom, and they are told you have to go back. And so there's about 500 people in Juarez or from Mexico that come, and about 500 people from the US side that go. And this organization is the only organization that has been able to have convince the Border Patrol to open the border. They have tried to do it in the Lower Valley and like in San Diego, but they don't have a good relationship. The nonprofits don't have a good relationship with Border Patrol. So this organization has been able to have a dialogue with Border Patrol to be able to do these events. Of course, I don't think they'll be able to do it now, but it's a very eye-opening thing to see of how many families have been divided over our immigration policies.
So yeah, Brazos No Muros, or Hugs Not Walls event was just so special, and it really was life-changing. When you're getting ready to go into Spanish 5 or Heritage Spanish and at Sandia Prep, you just hear so many people say, this trip is life-changing, and you're like, oh, great, but you don't realize how true that statement is until you're actually there looking at the border. It's not through a photograph, it's just like you're there, and it's like inches in front of you. And we're at this event, and we're seeing so many families who are literally just so similar to our own. They're just these wonderful, innocent people, and you're just seeing them face to face. And so many of them look so happy, and you just wonder, like, how could I not be happy? Like, how could I feel how can I not realize how grateful I need to be and how blessed I am until you're watching these families separated and get literally 3 minutes to hug for the first time in like literally decades. And you just hear like, family's listo, family's tiempo, like, and I was just stuck thinking, what if that was my sister on the other side of the border and I had 3 minutes, and how can you take 3 minutes to make up for a lifetime of memories missed, of just how many birthdays, how many anniversaries you didn't get to spend with your loved one. And just realizing how much time, like how many moments, just in 3 period moments of my life that I've just wasted. And just realize that I need to be so grateful for every second I have with my family, because it's just something that's so invaluable, and you don't realize that until that's taken away from you. And when you see families experience that separation between each other, it's just a moment of realizing, like, this is real, this is like the world we're living in. People are being separated and families are being broken apart because we are choosing hate over love. And it's been so long that it's just a moment that kind of breaks you and realize, how can I be a part of this, and how can I just return to Albuquerque, New Mexico, going back to like a senior year of high school, and just like keep living my normal life. it just doesn't seem fair when you see families who just experience that and then just returning to normality.
Yeah, Brazos no Muros was definitely the most impactful part of the trip. When we got there, the way it was set up is we were in El Paso, and then you could see Juarez across the fence, and New Mexico was right there too. So you could see all three parts. And there was a fence that they opened, and there was like a bridge in between Juarez and El Paso over the Rio Grande. And that's where the families would meet to hug. And when we got there, we were told that we were helping with a puppet show. And so they were like backpack puppets, and they were huge. And it was a story of a mom and her son reuniting. And so we were holding butterflies and cacti and flowers. And they told us, they were like, hey guys, like, obviously you should know this, but do not cross the border. It's a joke. It's not funny. Like, you'll get in serious trouble. Don't do it. And so then we're like starting to do the puppet show. We don't have that much information. And we're just like following everyone. And we got on the bridge and crossed the fence. And I wasn't expecting it. I don't know if other people were. But so I just like lost it. Yes, the border is a fence, but like they just opened it and we just walked through. And it was, I couldn't believe that that's what was happening. And I had a hard time gathering myself, so I stepped away after. And a random lady just walked up to me and just hugged me and talked to me about, she was another volunteer, and she just talked to me about how, at that point I had been like, how can we do this to each other? I knew about everything that happened, but it's so different when you see it in person. And I just couldn't believe that people hate other people this much. And she told me, she made me feel better about it, and the whole event did, and telling me how it's good that we do things like this, and even though some stuff might seem small, it does make a really big impact. Even just us going, we were a small group of people, but I've talked to so many people about the event and changed their perspectives. I have a family member who would refer to immigrants as aliens, and he's working on it. But I'm trying to show him why that's not okay. But that event was amazing, and I'm so grateful that we got to go, because I can't imagine how it was for the other trips, but I was heartbroken, and that event made me feel so much better.
Thank you. It sounds incredible, and every time I talk to Claudio or students and you share your experience, I just break into tears, because I can't imagine. I don't know if any of us can, being separated from our family for such an extended amount of time, missing birthdays and graduations and baptisms, and okay. So maybe some general questions, but maybe Dr. Perez, you can talk to us a little bit more about the current political climate, right? So we know, I hope many of us know, Mexico, for the first time in its long history, last October, welcomed the first woman president, Claudia Sheinbaum. She's done such, I think, incredible things from what I've been able to follow, but she's a very different president than the President of the United States at this moment. So can you tell us a little bit about how these two people are trying to, are they working with each other? Are we trying to understand what migrants here in the United States being deported to different parts of Latin America, whether or not they're citizens of those countries?
How much time do we have?
I know, we have a little bit of time. I'm trying to word these questions a little bit delicately.
Well, as you know, as a historian yourself, Dr. Romero, you know that the relationship between Mexico and the United States has always been very prickly,
Yes.
regardless of who's president. And of course, there's been neoliberal presidents who have favored more American policies rather than others. And Claudia Sheinbaum, just like her predecessor, López Obrador, I call him like the Bernie Sanders of Mexican politics. I don't know if I'm going way too far, but she's definitely standing her ground with a lot of the anti-immigration policies that have come up in this new administration. But I also want to clarify something that I think is very important to be aware that what Trump is doing is nothing new, unfortunately. He's been more vocal than any other president. But even Democratic presidents have been very, very pro deportation. I mean, Obama deported more people than his previous president, George W. Bush. I would say that the methods that Trump are using are the ones that make it even worse, because a lot of immigrants are not going through the due process situation, which limits their rights while being in this country. But again, going back to your question, Dr. Romero, is that President Claudia Sheinbaum, again, is standing her ground. She said, from what I've been keeping up, that she welcomes these immigrants back to their home, and that Mexico definitely, has a pride that should not be diminished by the current president, the current president of this country. So the relationship is not good, and so of course, adding to the tariff wars that we're having right now, which it's such a dumb thing for a lot of reasons. Again, that's why I asked how much time we have. But yeah, no, Claudia Sheinbaum is standing her ground, and I'm proud to say that I'm happy that she's doing that. That she's not, limiting herself and just giving up, and she's been a strong president. So far so good.
Con la cabeza fría, right? So if any of you have a chance to watch her kind of Monday morning or her weekly, maybe almost daily.
It's called I think El Mañanero or something like that.
Mañaneros, yeah. So, where she talks about whatever they're working on for the day in the week, but she's become very well known for her cabeza fría, right? She's not reacting and trying to be very calm, and collected.
Exactly.
So what are the most, and maybe also we'd start with students, because you've gone through this life-changing trip, I think, life-changing trip. But for the rest of us, and certainly Pastora, Doctor, and Claudio Perez, what are some of the most common myths that people hold about immigrants and immigration? And maybe you yourselves had these ideas about what migrants, who they were and what they did and why they came, and what are the kinds of things that you've now been able to dispel these myths based on your own firsthand experience at the border?
Before I went on this trip, I think myself, like a lot of other students, had this idea of like us versus them, and you don't want to say like, oh yeah, I'm a prejudiced person, but you just are like born with this idea of like, this is who I am, and we're going to go like visit people, and we're going to help them by coming, and you realize that that is so backwards, that these, like, when you are on the trip, you realize that they help you so much more than anything you could ever give them. And it just takes that line away, takes that separation away, because you just realize, just in conversation with these just wonderful people, that they are our neighbors here. They are just our family members, and there's no separation besides a border, and that is literally just a wall, and that is what we've been continuing to build to separate just wonderful human beings, thinking that we need division, thinking that some people should be on one side and some people should be on another, and we realize at the end of the day we all bleed the same. We're all human beings. There should never be a divide, and the fact that we're just continuing to pursue this for centuries is just really heartbreaking, especially after you get to have like conversations with just authentic conversations with real people and realize that none of this is true. You read so many books, and we read like Enrique's journey and Voces en Fronteras, and it's just, you get this idea that immigrants are portrayed as, like you were saying, aliens, or some people who are on the outside, that they're different from us, but we're the ones who are portraying them as different. Like the border is kind of, in my point of view, has become our perspective, like our way that we can hide our fear, because we don't want to realize that the people who are on the other side of this wall are just the same as us. So it's like, in a way, it's like by keeping this wall, it's by protecting us from our fear, and just kind of creating this sense of separation and distance from something that we're not strong enough or brave enough yet to realize that it's okay to just take down all the walls.
When I was in elementary school, two of my teachers, one was from Chihuahua, Mexico, and the other was from Nicaragua. And so I've always, and like I've have a ton of family friends who are Hispanic, and I like knew they were immigrants, but I don't think I really knew what that meant. And I definitely didn't realize how difficult it is to be an immigrant. It's insane. Like, this trip showed me that we spoke to an immigration lawyer, and wow, people go through a lot. Like, and before the trip, I had just finished watching Breaking Bad, so that's kind of where my head was at. So I was like thinking about, like, my idea was definitely that most immigrants who came without papers or illegally came for the purpose of like being like gangsters or selling drugs, and I knew that there was a mix, but I didn't realize how few people were actually doing that, and how many people actually just needed a better place to live. And now is it really like a better place to live? Like, there's not like, it's not great right now. But it like made me like look at my old teachers differently, and in a better way. And we love to think that we're like never gonna make mistakes or say something that could be taken as offense, but we're all obviously always gonna make mistakes, and it's just how the world is right now. And so I've like talked to my teachers about it. Like, I want to be able to talk about things, but as someone who's white, I'm scared of like saying something wrong and offending someone. And so I hope that when I talk about it, rather than people like getting upset with me, I'd rather people teach me the correct way to say something, because otherwise, like, you know, there's nothing, like, we can't do anything other than that.
Any other maybe perspectives from those of you who work with migrants? Are you seeing a change in perception of immigration and who you work with, Pastora, and Dr. Perez, the students that you teach as well? Are people changing their opinions? Are they kind of digging their heels in what they hear in the news as that's truth?
Well, two things, all right? I think just by me being in front of my students, I changed their perception, because there's not a lot of professors that look like me. So we're not a lot of us out there. That's one. The second is when I talk about immigration, is this perception that we're the whole criminality trope of immigrants. And I just want to give you a couple of examples how the media also kind of exploits this, all right? And I'm going to very fast so La Pastora can also say something. So the El Paso shooter, he was not an immigrant, all right? The people who took over January 6th, the Capitol building, they were not undocumented immigrants. The guy who shot the then candidate, now president, he was not an immigrant. What happened recently in Florida, he was not an immigrant. He was not an immigrant. He was an American citizen. So all these perceptions are something that I have to shatter with my students, because again, we come here because at the end, it doesn't matter our profession. It doesn't matter if Claudio works at a private school and he's a teacher, or I'm a professor at college. At the end, we all fall into those categories. We are all generalized as being part of that group. And that is something that we continuously have to swim against all the time. And sometimes it's very, very tiring, but we have to continue the fight. In addition to that, another misconception that I always tell my students, and I'm going to use my phone so I can give you some statistics, is the fact that immigrants come here to exploit the system, which is not true. There was this great study that came out in 2023 by the American Immigration Council. And these are undocumented immigrants. So I don't know how many of you are aware of this. So undocumented immigrants are essential contributions to the economy. In 2023, undocumented immigrants, households, undocumented immigrants paid $89.8 billion in federal taxes, and undocumented immigrants ended up paying $299 billion in spending power. So it's all these misconceptions that immigrants are coming here to abuse the system, and again, it's like again trying to deconstruct those misconceptions, and of course, and that's something that I need to inform my students that we're actually given more than what we're taking back.
There are several, of course, myths, especially on the southern border. And one of them is like what he said, that people are criminals when they come. And that has never been true, because every time we have spoken to a Border Patrol that was willing to say the truth, they would say that it was never more than 10%, out of 100% of people that cross, that, it has never gone beyond like 10%, they're like the criminals. And we always ask him, what's the difference then? Are you counting the criminals just because they crossed the border, or the ones that actually committed a crime? And so they, now, of course, this year, it's exaggerated. So now, this year, we don't know what to think. But in our experience in El Paso, we have had probably close to 10,000 people in our building. 10,000 refugees. We have never had a problem with any of them, at least in our experience. I have slept there a lot of nights by myself with all of them, one time with 12 men from, I don't know if they were from Guatemala or El Salvador. And instead of feeling afraid of them, I actually woke up around 2, 3 in the morning to talk to them because they couldn't sleep because of all the things that had happened to them and how they were worried about things. And so the criminality thing is just not true. Okay, yes, we do have criminals everywhere. And actually, I believe, if you can correct me, I think out of, there's 2 Americans that can be criminals to 1 of an immigrant. And also in 2024, I think there were 17,000 people that were criminals that crossed. If you actually find out how many crossed, then that's not a number that it reflects what they say. So is that true?
It is true, and I want to add to that. Thank you for bringing that, because I took some notes in regards to this. So the former director of Trump 1.0, Christo Rey, said that the biggest threat, the internal threat, are not people who are coming south of the border, but rather is white supremacy, all right, and domestic terrorism that is coming from here, from U.S. citizens, not from south of the border. Again, this is the FBI director who was assigned by then the first term Donald Trump. So she's 100% right. Yes, and I agree with the pastor that there's always a bad apple in the batch, right? And that unfortunately becomes kind of red meat for political reasons. But these people are fleeing a lot of the problems that were started by this country too. And a lot of people don't make those connections, all right? A lot of people are not fleeing because they want to come here and they want to, be here. They're fleeing because there's reasons, and there's a historical connection that in both people on the right and the left, they never make those connections. When the United States, during the Cold War, invaded Central America and created all kinds of havoc in those regions, that is a byproduct of why many people are coming here, all right? That's exactly what is happening in Africa. A lot of European nations are also very, very anti-immigrant, very nativist. Well, Europe went there first and exploited, the African populations, and now, of course, they're going to Europe, and it's the same kind of attitudes that these Western nations have. That they think that this problem is just happened now, but it's been happening for a long time. But we have to talk about the roots where the problem started, or else none of this is going to make sense to the public. That's the thing, is that we are very misinformed when it comes to the realities of immigration in this country.
Also, the other myth is that we're being invaded. We are not being invaded. You are welcome to come to El Paso anytime, and you won't feel afraid of anything in El Paso, okay? When Trump sent before the National Guard, it was a waste of money because they were just there all day sitting, okay? Now he's sending these trucks or these, what are they called, that he put on all the border, because he thinks that the war is going to start between Mexican cartels and this side. We are not being invaded, because when you're invaded, I think it is when you take another country, when you take something from. So we're not really being invaded. Believe me, El Paso up until 23, all of the years that I've lived there was always between the first and the second safest city in the United States. And so this is a myth. And the fentanyl myth, it's so much a lie when the president said that the border with Canada and the border here, that how many people have crossed the drug from here. The statistics that he said about Canada are just not true, believe me, at all. And we also have to think what's our fault. If there wasn't a demand from people in the United States, because we sometimes probably, take more than 60% of the drugs in this country. We have to really think about the problem here and what to do with our youth, with our people, I am so strong about this because my daughter was affected by that. So I'm telling you, we have to put money back into, like places that can help the youth and can help the people that are consuming that. So I get angry when he says they're being blamed, like Canada and Mexico. And most of the people that cross the drugs are US citizens, are not the immigrants. Yes, there are some, but most of them are actually US citizens.
One of the things that I do in my class, every time I start my class, my first class when I teach border studies, one of the things that I like to tell my kids is that, you're going to be learning about immigration, you're going to be learning about politics, you're going to be learning about really harsh realities. But one thing that I would like you to take home from this class at the end of the year, to take from my class at the end of the year, is to see people as human beings. And I don't know if you guys recall that. That's what I said. And then we explore graphic novels. We explore documentaries. We had a chance to watch a few movies. We had a chance to go to the border and come back. And the kids are working on their border doors they finished yesterday. But anyway, my point here is that I like my kids, my students, to take something with them when they graduate, and I would like them to take that humanity. I want them to erase these mythical tropes of Hollywood that have constantly portrayed immigrants as bad people, drug dealers, and so on. There's a long list that I can say about that. And I would like my students to erase that trope from their subconscious and to see people for who they are. And for me, that's really important.
Yeah, I will add a little bit to that because the statistics and the numbers don't really provide a face to the experience. So in my Latin American history, contemporary Latin American history class, I used a book that actually Claudio gave me, and it had a big impact on me. It's The Beast, Riding the Rails and Dodging Narcos and the Migrant Trail. It's by Oscar Martinez. I don't know if you've heard of the book, but if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. because you humanize these people. They're humans too. They have a story to tell. And yeah, that's another way of, kind of debunking a lot of these tropes that immigrants are here for bad reasons, but also the fact that they hear their voices why they're coming here, and everybody has a different reason. So that's a good book, and again, I highly recommend it to anybody who's interested.
So I think I want to hear one more thing from Claudio, and maybe we'll have a couple minutes for some questions if anybody has questions for our group here. But Claudio, you've come regularly now that we have this exhibition up, and I think you know as well as I do, but all of our staff here, I think, are well aware of the incredible reception from our museum visitors of this exhibition, right? Coming to view it, and really the many tours that I've given, that our museum guides have given, just the many groups that we've been able to talk to and share with them some of these individual stories that the students have shared with us about their experiences talking with people and how this has made an impact on their lives. So I also just want to start this question by saying that, thankfully we were able to bring this exhibition with the support of our museum staff, but it's transformed our public too, who don't have the opportunity to go and visit the border, to meet the pastora, to go and meet with folks that you guys routinely do. So thank you for sharing your work with us. But I'd like to know from you how this project you're hoping to change, how it's going to evolve. What's the next step for this project?
How long do we have? There's a lot of things that are happening with the project. Right now, I'm working with the teacher, Sandia Prep, Mr. G. Funk is here, and we're making posters of every door. We took some pictures of every door ever created by our students. And what we want to do is, first of all, we want to publish a book, number one. Number two, we would like to, after we publish this coffee table book, I would like to work on some curriculum. So someone from Germany, someone from Canada, someone from Peru can pick up this book, and it can sort of replicate this project. So these are some of the things that I have in mind. But when we talk about immediate goals, the posters, I'm going to be creating posters of every doors, and then I want to send them to different universities, different culture centers, because exhibiting these doors can be really expensive. So some of these entities, cultural entities, don't have the money, the resources. So sending these posters is going to be much cheaper for them. Number two, I'm in the process of working with 3 schools here in Albuquerque, and I just made a connection with the Universidad de Juarez, with the professor there, and we're going to be creating what I'm calling a binational narration of doors, meaning that some of the kids from here, 1st to 5th grade, they're going to be able to draw part of these little mini doors, and then I'm going to take them to Juarez. So I don't know how I'm going to get them there, and the other schools are going to be drawing the other part of the door, so we can have that binational narration when it comes to immigration issues. So these are some of the I am working with the Mexican consulate here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and after the doors leave here, the next step is for them to host the doors there, but they would like to make this a permanent collection, which means that every year these doors are going to be rotating. So my students are going to have the doors there for a year, and then I'm going to recreate the doors again with a different topic, and they're going to be able to replace them, and that's the whole thing. That's going to continue. But eventually, the end result, my big dream, I think I'm a dreamer here, I would like these doors to eventually go to Washington. That's what I would like. For me, that would be that would be the big dream. But of course, this would not be possible without the help of the Albuquerque Museum, the city, and a lot of people that are here that have been really, really helpful with this project. So I don't think I would be able to do this without your help. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you so much, everyone. And we can take maybe a couple questions. And before I forget, I do want to just mention if at the end you want to learn a little bit more about Pastora Sanchez Guzman's work, and maybe how you can help if you're interested. She has some information for you. And of course, I think maybe Claudio and Dr. Perez are willing to entertain some more questions after we're done too, maybe the students. So if we have a couple questions.
Hi, I'm just would love to know, what do you see as the policy solution, for our policymakers? Is it simply just having like more legal immigration to solve any border issues, or something else? What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a big question. We have a love and hate relationship with Mexico in so many ways, and also they have attempted to do immigration legally by pretty much going to Mexico and recruiting people to come to this country. My dad came in the early 1950s under the Bracero program. I don't know if you're aware of it, the guest worker program. They came after the New Deal. We have a very dysfunctional immigration policy, and it hasn't been fixed for decades. I don't think a new Bracero program will solve the solution. It might ease it a little bit, but it has to be done the right way, because even that Bracero program was very abusive. I was lucky enough to interview my dad for my dissertation, and he was telling me these horrible stories of him being recruited in Mexico and American doctors doing quality control over there, and then coming to the United States and being fumigated with DDT before they entered the United States. And also they were not paid very well. I mean, it was very dysfunctional. But both Mexico and the United States were at fault for that. But again, it's not about allowing it, but again, people, all they want to do is work. Believe me, a lot of people want to come to the United States. They don't. But if there's a possibility where they can just get like a visa to work, and I know there's some programs out there. Canada has a very, very functional program where there's seasonal workers that go back and forth. And some politicians are trying to replicate that. But right now, with the current situation, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But I do agree with you. What is the best solution for people to come to this country the right way? Again, some people just want to come here and work and go back home. But it's just trying to figure out the in and outs. And having Trump as president, I don't think is going to happen anytime soon. But if we had somebody else, I assure you that Claudia Sheinbaum is a very rational person. And I think she probably would have compromised herself with a program that will be beneficial for both countries. But right now, I don't think there's a solution yet. But that's a great question, and thank you for asking it.
Can I answer just a little bit? From my faith perspective, what I worry about, every country has their own powers, and they know that they have to protect borders and things like that. But my worry is whether Democrats or Republicans is that they are not respecting human rights. That's my problem, and I don't think it's just as a Christian. I think as a human being, I have seen or I have heard so many stories from refugees which their human rights were not respected. And now in this second term, I am afraid that it is worse than before. From mothers telling that they threw away their medicines when they came back from the hospital, so the kids had the flu and kids were so sick. When they came back, the officers took away their medicines so they wouldn't be able to give their medicines to their kids. Things like that, from only allowing them to have one thing of water a day and only one time a day to use the restroom. and things like that. It escalated. By 2019, everything escalated, and you have no idea how many stories we have heard of how even the worst criminals have rights. You know, they have lawyers and they have these rights, but because they're immigrants, they're treated like dogs, they're treated like something else, like and the majority of them are not criminals, and we are treating them like that. So my worry comes of any government is that I was proud of the United States before when I was a child, and I always wanted to come to the United States because I would see on TV that the Red Cross was always helping somewhere, and the United States was always going against a country that was not respecting human rights. We are worse now. Here in our own country, we are not respecting human rights. And that's where I come from as a faith person, that whatever policies we make, whatever we do, it has to have that component of treating people as human beings.
Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you very much. But I want to speak about this because it was just basically very, in general terms, touched upon. I have owned a business in Albuquerque for 35 years that's very much influenced by immigration workforce. I'm a roofing contractor. And some people think in this country that the wages that we pay immigrants drive this, and it doesn't. And let me tell you why. I fought for years for the roofing workers in New Mexico to receive a fair wage. And when I was the president of the New Mexico Roofing Contractors Association, I fought very hard for us to increase the wages so that our workers received a living wage. And now they make anywhere from $36 to $38 an hour. And we don't have one American applying for a job, not one. Not one single American comes through the door to work day in and day out in the harsh conditions at a job that's very dangerous for a wage of $38 an hour. It's never going to happen. There are areas of work in our country that Americans are never going to work for. I have a sign up that says now hiring, but it doesn't say now hiring immigrants. It says now hiring. I can't find Americans to do this work. And I want to say something else. We never reflect upon the fact that these people are tax paying. They're paying taxes. You touched on it. We don't realize that they come here, they give up everything that they know, everything that's normal to them, to live in the shadows, pay taxes to a government that will never take care of them, to be mistreated. Recently, I had a company meeting and I talked to some of my employees, and one of the qualifying factors for them to have legal status is if they've been a victim of a violent crime, and I was shocked to find out that most of them had legal status because they had been a victim of a violent crime, because an American citizen had pulled guns on them at a drive-through because they were immigrants. It is unbelievable. And if we are going to address this in a meaningful way, it has to be with human rights as the first consideration. These are people that do the jobs we will never do, and it's not about wages. And I'm here to basically say I know because I live it, and I withhold taxes every week, and I contribute those every week to the federal government, and these employees will never see the benefit of that.
Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for your attention, for your attendance here. I hope you'll take another minute now that you've heard all of our incredible panelists talk. Please go and visit the Border Doors exhibition one more time. You'll see a little bit of the history that Dr. Perez was talking about, the U.S. interventions in destabilizing Latin American governments that propelled a lot of the movement north to this country. You'll learn a little bit more, about Senior Perez, Dr. and Claudio Perez's father, his life story in the Bracero program and all the sacrifices that he and his wife made for their children and grandchildren, I know, are in the audience. This has just been an honor, and I've said it time and time again every time we've been able to host a program. It's just been an incredible honor for me personally, but as a staff of the Albuquerque Museum, to be able to host this exhibition, to share with you this important story that not everyone is able to tell for whatever reason. Thank you so much for being here. Students, thank you. I think you're graduating this year, right? Congratulations. And
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, one more thing on my students, today is their prom day, and they decided to come here and be present and talk about their experience, so thank you for doing that.
I have brochures for the immersion program if anybody's interested, okay?
And I want to thank Dr. Romero for having us. Thank you so much. And the museum for having us, and this has been an honor. And thank you for the great comment, by the way. Appreciate it.